Hello, friends. Let me talk about something which we all have gone through. So, we all have participated in surveys, right? So, the survey closes, we prepare the dashboards, green lights, red lights, maybe amber somewhere. Yeah. We build the deck, we present the findings. Okay, reduce that or get to that survey part, talk about an employee engagement survey for that matter, right? So our engagement quotients would have gone up 5 points, 2 points, 10 points. Something would have gone down here. This trust has gone up. There are a few complaints over here, and so on and so forth. Checkbox in the KPI, and we move on to the next priority. However, the people who filled the survey, do they know what had happened? Can they? Because end of the day, people are watching us, right? The organization is watching us. It's not only about HR, but as being in the people function, I think it's a huge responsibility for each one of us to be able to go back and tell people, this is what you have said, and this is what we have done. And people do know the difference between a survey and a conversation. How many of us have noticed that the participation rates falling down? How many of us have noticed that in the surveys, things come up, but suddenly the qualitative comments come down, maybe blank? And on the ground, does things visibly change? Probably not. And at times, if people ask us that question, what do? Do we have an answer? And probably, as a people of business leader, it is probably a very, very hard spot for us to be in, right? If you look at some numbers, now we all know that Gallup had come up with the engagement survey numbers for across the world, wherein India probably had hit one of the lowest quadrants in its for the last 4 years in terms of the engagement percentage. I think it was about 23%, whereas the global average tends to be about say 20. But it has been lowest in India measured in the years. Estimated cost of this disengagement is approximately $350 billion a year. Now, a survey is not a statistics, right? This goes up to a business problem, because if people are not contributing to the extent they're expected to, then the organization loses end of the day, right? The other point was about engagement at a managerial level. Apparently, there was a fall by close to 9 to 10%, if I recall correctly, from 39 to 30%, just in a year. Once again, the Gallup surveys, the Gallup published reports. Means what? Managers who are supposed to lead their respective teams, if they themselves are not finding it in them to drive their performance, what are we looking for? And remember that resignation does not come on a day. Resignations happen just when I don't feel myself relevant, right? So if I am not really getting to that whole aspect of discretionary effort, where I am really looking and contributing to the organization by myself, where am I finding my relevance, right? The problem, therefore, is never documentation. The problem, therefore, is employees not speaking up. The problem, therefore, is never ever that organization's intent of listening to people, of hearing people, was not there. Mostly there is. But are we really listening? Are we really spending that little time to decipher whatever people have said? And most importantly, are we really intended to go and close that loop? And because unless that happens, probably things don't work. And we know that In the HR teams, we probably tend to focus a lot of time. There's some data saying that a 60 to 70% of an HR VP's time goes into simply checking the box or compliance in terms of their activities that they are supposed to do, right? The HR operations teams, majority of the time goes in payroll. And for organizations, MSMEs and all, where there is probably a few people, the teams are very lean, the entire focus goes on to that compliance mode. So when are we really standing up or elevating ourselves to that level where we can really speak with the leadership, talk to the function heads, giving them realities of what is happening in their particular teams or in their particular sub-organizations to ensure that the business is being successful. And at the end of the day, is that not the key thing that why HR teams exists? To make the business successful through its people interventions. So the choice is ours. It is not only presenting to a so-called steering committee. It is not only, presenting, doing a survey, getting the numbers, showing it out, maybe patting our backs at times, which we also rightfully deserve. But probably going back and closing that loop with the most important constituent in the business, our people, telling them what have we heard, telling them what they have told, telling them what we make out of what they have said, and most importantly, acting on certain things, telling them what could be acted upon, most importantly, what we cannot act upon, right? We don't need any perfect action plan, but we need a visible one. We need to stop the survey ritual. For once, let us start closing the loop, and I'm sure all of us will see the difference. Thank you.